Hello, I am Noelle Rollins. Welcome to Creating a Life You Love Over 40. In this video, we are going to conquer some of those fears around traveling or retiring early to our favorite destinations we've dreamed about. If you have been eyeing a dream trip, retiring early and traveling abroad, RVing around the country, this video is for you because we are going to tackle so many of the fears that stop us and shift our thinking, change the way that we're processing those, and remove them as obstacles. So in 2022, me and my family, we traveled 3 months around the world, visiting multiple countries. So I have walked through every one of these fears that we're going to talk about today, and I have solutions that can help you make that happen. There is nothing more heartbreaking to me than talking with someone older in life who always had dreamed of going somewhere, and for one reason or another, they never made it. They always had a dream of going back to where their grandparents were from, or visiting a certain baseball field, World War II sites, past locations and things from stories that they've heard, books they've read, that they dreamed about, and they let fear stop them. Now, fear may feel like a strong word. I get that. But if fear feels too strong, I want you to think of substituting there was hiccups in life, or there was frustrations, concerns. We'll use all sorts of words instead of fear to downplay what we're going through. But ultimately, on some level, fear is often what stops us if we don't make it happen. So here are 5 different areas where fear pops up the most, and we're going to walk through and find solutions to those. So the first one is lack of information. Fear that you're not going to know what to do. So the biggest way to tackle this head on, especially with travel, is research. We live in a world today where almost every place on this planet you can find information about, whether it's travel articles, blogs, looking up the actual city, their website, YouTube videos. Somebody has probably gone there, filmed videos about it, and you can watch them. What I do typically is if I know that I'm going to want to visit a city. So let's take when we wanted to visit Cairo, Egypt. That felt very overwhelming to me. And there was so much I didn't know culturally. I didn't know safety-wise. It's a very large city, and so it felt very overwhelming to me. So what I typically do is I'll type Cairo into my Google Maps, and I can start zooming in. I can see where the major tourist sites are. So for that, I'll look up some of the pyramids, the Great Pyramid of Giza, the Sphinx. Where is the airport? Where is their government buildings located? Where are the historical sites located? That will help me start to get my bearings about the city. When you zoom in far enough, you'll also see areas that are sort of a light yellow color, and that can tell you that they're popular areas. People are probably walking around in those areas. They may be a little more touristy, so you can know that those areas are pretty accessible often. The next thing I will do is I'll look up Viator or walking tour websites, maybe Rick Steves, things like that. And I will see what places they are recommending to visit. If there's any travel tips they have, any things to be aware of. And I keep a notebook or a spreadsheet and I write them down. After that, I will think of how I am planning on staying in this location. So for Cairo, I knew I had Hilton Honors points that we had saved up and IHG points. So I started on those websites and I started looking up hotels. That taught me a few things. That taught me where are the locations that westernized hotels feel it's worth having a location in Cairo. Then it taught me prices, so I could start to lay out, okay, if I want to stay in this area of Cairo, it's about this much. This area is a little more expensive. And I keep track of that. I'm not making any decisions at this point, but I'm gathering information. So now I can start to see, even if I'm not going to visit all of those tourist sites, I can start to see where they are. I can see a pattern with, okay, if I want to stay right next to this museum or historical site, it's probably going to be a little bit more. If I'm willing to take a bus, a train, walk a few blocks, the cost goes down. I can start connecting dots. And that takes away some of that fear for me of not having enough information. The next thing I'll research is language. I often will pull up that language on Duolingo or Google it, do an internet search, and try to learn, or at least write down at that point, the top 10, 15 phrases that I may need to know. Thank you, please, where is, arrivals, departures, food, bathroom, things like that. Hello. I will look up what their money system is, their safety index. All of these things are available and you can research them. Sometimes I'll do a cost of living comparison of, I'm outside the Twin Cities here, so I'll do Minneapolis versus Cairo. Helps me have a general idea of what budget I may need. And you can do this for every city that you're visiting if they're a major city. There may not be cost of index listings for all the small cities around, but it'll give you a ballpark idea. So what I want you to do is, with the piece of paper, I want you to make 2 lines, so it makes 3 columns down your notebook. Or you can use a spreadsheet on your computer if you prefer. I have a worksheet similar to this in my Dare to Dream workbook, and it's so helpful. And so I want to make a modified version of that here we can use. In the left column, I want you to write down the places you're wanting to visit. These can be cities or they can be the countries as a whole. And then in the middle column, I want you to write down the fear that comes up around that place. And so since we've only covered the first so far, if it's a lack of information, write that next to that city. And in the third column, I want you to write solutions. So for any that lack of information came up, write research in the solutions column. We're going to keep adding to this throughout. And by the end, you'll have an action plan of how you can tackle each of these fears. And if fear feels like a strong word, don't be so overwhelmed by that. You can think of obstacles, hiccups, concerns. Sometimes they're very minor things. They're not gigantic fears. They're simply a little bit of friction that we just chose not to deal with, and then it never happened. So, all right. Fear number 2 is the fear of what ifs. Not knowing how things are going to play out when you visit this place can be daunting. For travel in particular, it's a big one. Will you be able to communicate? What if I don't speak the language or I say something wrong and someone laughs at me or thinks I'm being rude? What if I get lost? What if I can't find my way? There's so many what ifs that can happen. And so we need to come down to just some basic tools. The first comes back to information. I look at it with a sense of curiosity, and I approach each country that I visit with a very open heart. I want to step into their culture. I try not to bring all of my American safety net way that I've been taught. Instead, I want to see how they're living. I want to be open to them. I want to treat them with respect and kindness. And for me, that's why I'm traveling there. I want to immerse myself. I know what it's like to live where I live. And I want to be open to going to these other locations and taking little pieces of that back into my life with me. But that can only happen if I'm open enough to receive them and fully embrace them. And people have always been so polite. If I've ever needed help in another country, I am polite and humble and kind. I smile, and I've never had any problems. Another fear that can come up is self-doubt. And this is where you have to know that you've figured out life to this point. You have to believe in yourself that you can handle things as they come up. You're going to immerse yourself so much with this dream that when the self-doubt starts to come up, you have a safety net around you to help calm that. And so some things that can help with that are, for me, what worked was I started watching families traveling. For me, since we were going with our 11-year-old at the time, I wanted to see how families interacted. We like to take it slow, visit the museums. We're not out late at night. We're probably getting up early and getting a good start on the day, things like that. There are online groups that you can join. Before we went to Japan recently, my husband joined a couple different groups on Facebook, and this was extremely helpful. So we could see tips about amusement parks, tips about the trains, tipping, how to behave in restaurants, what the expected norms were. So there are groups like this on social media. You can also look up Reddit or other posts where people are sharing their knowledge from what they've experienced. And this is a gold mine. A lot of the self-doubt also came from me. I overcame it by switching my thinking from, can we make this happen, to, are we willing to put the energy into making this happen? That changed the entire feeling for me about it. It wasn't this big what if. I actually had a say in it. My actions mattered. I think with anything in life, if we are willing to put energy into it, it monumentally changes the results. We're seeing people travel there. We're becoming more familiar with their way of life. We set that goal and really speak it into existence. That aligning then is occurring on all levels. It makes it so much more likely that you are going to make that happen rather than simply saying, someday I want to go to Paris or Australia. Someday I want to RV around America and see all the parks. Instead, start setting some concrete goals with that and know that your energy matters towards that. So on your worksheet, I want you to add the last two areas that we've come up with. The fear of what ifs and self-doubt. Now, the what ifs is research also. The self-doubt is finding travel groups, finding ways to start learning the language. Start immersing yourself so you're surrounding yourself with people that have made this happen before so it does not feel impossible to you. The next item on our list is time. We need to make time to make this happen. Instead of someday, let's start putting dates on the calendar. I don't care if it's 3 years from now, put a date on the calendar. There's something that happens when it goes from an abstract thought to, nope, we are going from June 22nd through July 7th. If you can, put the time in to take off work. Even if you're not even 100% sure you can afford it at this point, or you don't have all your ducks in a row as far as planning. Now, don't put in for the vacation 2 months from now if you don't know if you can afford it. I don't want you to be reckless. I'm not saying that at all. Instead, though, we want to hold ourselves accountable. When I choose the timing, what I often do is I'll look up the weather. In my complexion, do not do really well in super hot climates, at least not at the hottest parts of their year, if I can at all avoid it. So I prefer the shoulder seasons, and that helps me from a budget perspective and often weather perspective. So my favorite times I visited Italy were late September and October. The weather was still beautiful, and all of the costs were much cheaper than if I went in their peak seasons. Lastly, money, our favorite topic, right? How to afford the trip. Now, if money isn't an object for you, then go ahead and skip this part. But I'm guessing it may not be for you, but it probably is for someone in your life. And so I would encourage you to watch it because you might be able to offer them help in making it happen. So instead of saying I could never afford to go to Paris or I could never afford to go to Australia, we're going to switch that, instead saying, how can I afford to go to Australia? What do I need to do to make that happen? It's very possible, as long as I have a passport and I'm able to research and I'm able to start with enough time, put together a financial plan to make it happen, then it can. People are doing it. Now, for me, I like to pay all of my trips up front. And what I mean by that is I make sure in our savings account we have enough money for the entire trip before we step foot out the door. Once we're on our trip, we're using our credit cards and things like that. It's safer. We build up travel points and we use cash where we have to. We'll take out some cash, but I want to know I have the money when we get home, that I'm able to pay all of that off in full, because I don't ever want to be in debt over travel. The first key thing is knowing your travel style. Are you a bougie traveler? Do you want to have the big carry-on, checked luggage, somebody helping you, the nicest hotels? It's good to be aware that even throughout many parts of the world, you may still be walking with your luggage unless you can really afford to have somebody bring it right to your room and your door. For most of us, you're going to be somewhere in the middle. Where I fall, I like to have safe travels and I like to feel like my rooms are clean, but I don't mind carrying my own bags. I am probably mixing eating out and stopping by the local markets and getting some food, finding some budget options. I want to be able to experience the country. I love just simply being in the energy of it. There's nothing more fun to me than sitting at a table, watching people pass by, hearing other languages in the background. The music of that country is often playing. You can hear it. That's what I love. I love how many other cities have these big squares in the center of their towns where people gather and there's markets. So to me, it's not worth the high cost if I don't have to. I'd rather do more travel and experience more than spend a lot of money. But that's just me. The third type is the complete budget traveler. Those are people that are backpacking, potentially staying at hostels with groups of people, maybe couch surfing, house sitting, things like that. We're not going to talk about that per se, but there is tons of resources out there for that. So for me, what I do is I start to, since I know I'm in the middle of the road there, I start to figure out about what I think it's going to be or what I can afford. And I kind of backtrack, reverse engineer from there. I will look up flights to that place, and I'll start to see which airlines fly there. I'll start to see, sometimes it's cheaper if I can fly from New York City or LA, Los Angeles to that place, where then I can use some credit card travel hacking to get to New York or LA and save money overall. So I've mentioned travel hacking a couple times. Let me really quickly say what that is. And it's pretty much, I believe, for United States residents mostly only that we find these benefits. But you can have credit cards like an IHG credit card, a Sun Country, American Airlines credit card, United, Delta, Marriott, Hilton, endless. And they will often have bonuses. So you sign up for the credit card. If you get approved, it may be something like spend $3,000 on this credit card in the first 90 days, and you will get 100,000 points. It may cost $95 annually for this card, things like that. And so you have to be, there's a couple things really quickly. I don't want to go too far into this because it's a whole rabbit hole in itself, but you only want to do this if you are responsible with credit cards and you will pay them off in full. What I do is we suddenly shift all of our groceries, our gas, our internet, any extra expenses, anything that we have coming up, we shift it so it goes through that credit card. If we just opened a, let's say, IHG card, we'll shift everything through that for the next 90 days to hit that bonus. Then what we do is we now have that points bonus where we can use that to get free nights hotel. And most of the time, I will cancel the card within the year simply because I know we don't need to ongoingly pay the $95. It doesn't make sense for us. There's a few cards where we use them enough, or when we were doing our 3 months, we stayed at IHG hotels a lot, which is like Holiday Inns, things like that. And every time we would stay, you'd get points off those stays. And then with IHG, every time we would stay 3 nights, you got the 4th night free when you use the credit card. So we were able to get dozens of free nights of hotel simply by being really smart with what cards we used. And now going back to flights, if I knew that I wanted to go somewhere that Air France flew to, they are a partner airline of American Airlines. So I would probably look into getting an American Airlines card, getting a bonus on it, and using that to fly Air France. Now you can research, Google, look up YouTube videos. There are people who are experts at this topic. I am just enough to get by, I know. But it's helped us tremendously. So look into it if you're at all open to that. The next thing what we do is we try to save on food. And I actually look at this as a really fun experience. So when we were in Italy, what we would do is our hotel had breakfast. We would wake up and have breakfast. Then we would go explore for the day. And while we were out, we'd have lunch somewhere. So we'd always pick a different kind of restaurant or a different feel, something like that. Maybe try to stretch it out to a little bit later lunch, 1, 2 o'clock if we could. Then as we headed back to our hotel or our Airbnb for the evening, we would stop by the market. And I love stopping by grocery stores and markets in other countries. And I specifically remember in Italy getting a long baguette, some cheeses, salamis, um, olive oil and tomatoes and basil. And we'd make our sandwiches for the evening. And it felt so real life, I guess, being in Italy and actually eating the food that they have in their stores. But it also saved a ton of money. When we were in Japan recently, we had all four of us there, and we would go into their konbinis, their markets, for in the evening when we were heading back to the hotel, and each of us would grab whatever we wanted. And this would be things like, I always grabbed an onigiri and probably a coffee drink for the next morning if we had a fridge in our room. And then we would grab some kind of snack item. I might grab something with a little chocolate in it, an ice cream bar for the walk home, maybe a bag of cashews, something like that. My daughter and son and husband would all grab, my daughter would grab udon, a big meal of that. My husband and son might grab some chicken, maybe some more onigiri or some sort of sushi, sandwiches, bags of chips. We would load up. We'd have a giant bulging bag full of food, and it would be under $20 American dollars. And we would go back and we'd have stuff to snack on and munch on, and we'd catch up on our day, look through our photos, reset. After being together all day, we all are pretty similar where we need a little bit of downtime. So this was always a double win. And we would do this probably 5 or 6 nights out of the week. A couple times we'd go out at night also and have dinner and see the lights outside and things like that, which was always really fun also. But this helped us stretch our budget so much further. And it gave us a sense, kind of this backdoor scene to the culture. All right. Next up, transportation. So a good rule of thumb that I have found about 90+% of the time is true is if you want to get somewhere quicker, it's going to cost you more. So where you can, I kind of think of like pick your battles. If you need to fly somewhere to get there immediately, do that. And obviously from country to country, that's often what you have to do. But sometimes there's trains you can take, and it's scenic. You get to see the countryside. The trains in so many of these other countries are so comfortable. Often they'll have tables. You can sit and lounge. You get up and walk around. They are amazing. They're so easy. Highly recommend them. Other times we've taken buses or ferries. Within the city, we'll often walk. When we were in Rome, we had a whole walking tour planned for the day, and we took the train to the farthest part of that and then slowly continued to work our way back and walked all day, seeing everything we wanted to see, and we only had to take the train once. If you're able to walk, I highly recommend that. It's great exercise, and you get to see how things are all connected. So go through now on your spreadsheet, and I want you to think of if any of the locations you have for your dream list is time stopping you. Is it simply that you need to make time? Sometimes time means you have a newborn baby at home, and it feels just a little too overwhelming to make that happen, and that's legitimate. Now, if money is a concern, put money. If that's something that's held you back in the past, put that in the second column. And then in the solutions column, the third column, next to each of those locations, if you put money, I want you to start thinking through, if you know this trip is going to be $5,000, let's say, what can you do to make that happen? Now, normally there's 2 options. You either save the money out of money that's already coming in, or you make more money. So you look up extra part-time jobs, side hustles, you work some overtime, or you find ways to save within money you already have. Now, sometimes also you can sell things. For us, we often do that. We have so much stuff, and I've always trying to get more towards a simplistic, calm life. And it seems like stuff finds its way to us. And so we're consistently going through things and selling, marking things for sale, simply to keep them moving. I don't like stuff building up here. So those are the top ways that I helped overcome fear and make our travels happen. And I want you to look at your list and you can see your dreams, what those obstacles have been in the past, but they don't have to be anymore. And you have solutions. I want you to imagine you wake up in the morning and you're in this location. What does it feel like? You can feel the sun on your face. You step out of your hotel or your Airbnb, your RV, and you just take it in. What language are you hearing? Just feel it. What are you drinking or eating? What's your schedule for the day? Start to feel the realness of that dream. It is so possible. I am cheering you on as you work towards that. Just know that it is so possible for you, and these tips can really help you make it happen. I would love to hear what your dream location is, if you'll share it in the comments. And I really believe in a collaborative community. So if you have any other tips that have helped you overcome any fears, please share them. I would love to have your knowledge. And I'm sure it'll help not just me, but other people as well. So please feel free to share. I hope you have a really wonderful day and happy travels. Bye.